Thinking about riding a motorcycle, it's way too subversive.
Hello everybody, I'm talking today to Mark Fielder, who's a motorcyclist from London who has gone to great lengths to raise a petition to the Hounslow Borough Council about their proposed parking charges. Hello Mark, do you want to just quickly introduce yourselves to our viewers, who you are and how you came to be involved with raising petitions?
Yeah, sure, Colin. Thank you. It's good to have the opportunity to put this forward. Yeah, as I said, my name's Mark Fielder. I'm a motorcyclist of long standing. I've been riding bikes since 1976. A variety of machines. Nowadays I tend to ride more classic and retro because that's where my interest lies. But I was a daily commuter on a bike for the whole of my working life before I retired. So I live in West London, quite close to Heathrow Airport. I live in the London Borough of Hounslow, and I tend to ride my bike in preference to using my car. I've as people like us to do, is to reduce our car mileage these days. So I've replaced a lot of my car mileage with bike mileage. So I was really concerned to read of Hounslow's intention to charge for motorcycle parking, because it's one of those things that we make use of quite considerably. You know, the dedicated bike bays in car parks are really useful. We know we can find somewhere to park, and they are, yeah, as I said, they're a useful offering from the local council. So that's really my position, is to challenge the assumptions that the London Borough of Hounslow are making about motorcycles and how they're used.
Is this the kind of thing that you get involved with on a regular basis? Are you constantly in touch with your local council about these sort of issues, or is there something in particular that struck you as wrong or odd about this particular proposal?
Well, I think the assumptions that the council are making about motorcycle use and their impact on the local environment are flawed. I'm not someone who regularly gets up and starts campaigning for things. I'm a member of MAG, and I'm concerned about the rights of motorcyclists. But it was just this particular issue that I thought, well, it's time really to stand up and be counted and see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously, I mean, the parking charges is something that is taking the country over. It's happening around the country more and more that we see these things cropping up. But very often it's done fairly low profile, so they don't make a big song and dance about it until they're well into the process of making the decisions, before everybody cottons on to the fact that all of a sudden, when they're talking about parking charges, they are now talking about motorcycle parking charges, not just parking charges for cars. I think that's something that's certainly my reading of the consultations that they've done. They're all closed now, but the consultations didn't seem to be directed at probably the people that were going to be most impacted, i.e. the people who are currently paying nothing for parking, but all of a sudden they're going to have parking charges introduced on it in an area where they wouldn't normally expect to see any parking charges.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about the consultation, because Hounslow, they did have a kerbside and parking strategy consultation, which I think I'd have to I'm open to correction on this, but I think they got something in the region of fewer than 300 responses. It was a very poor consultation. It was very vague about motorcycle parking. As usual in these consultations, they seem to be lumping in motorcycles as small cars, because I actually responded to the consultation and there was a box to tick what was your regular mode of transport. There was no listing of motorcycles. I had to tick the box marked other and specifically write in that I was a regular motorcycle rider. So I think the claim to have consulted fully on these things is quite thin. I mean, maybe 300 responses is a good response for a consultation, but I set up the petition against motorcycle parking in Hounslow, and within a week we'd had over 300 responses to that petition. So
Yeah, so
and
more responses to the petition than to the actual consultation, which was
oh,
publicised
absolutely.
by the council, as opposed to just you setting up a petition and hoping.
Yes, yes, and I hope that we can get some more responses as well, and hopefully this video will promote some more people to sign up to the petition. And I think it's important, even if you're not in the local area, you could be travelling to the local area, you could be looking for somewhere to park. Um, but I think there's more to it than that. I, I suspect that councils watch what other councils are doing, and they'll see that if there's a strong opposition to a particular policy, that should help them reframe their ideas, or at least rethink their ideas so they're more fairly aimed at uh, motorcyclists in general.
I'm assuming that you'll have seen the response that, say, one of the other Greater London MAG members got from the council when they said about the consultation, how it had all been done properly, and everybody had been given their chance to sort of like respond. Um, but I think that what very often happens is these things are, I wouldn't say deliberately done in a way that people don't notice them, but they don't go out of their way to highlight it to the people who are going to be most directly affected, and say they will frame things in the way that they word it is,
Oh yes,
do you want better air quality? Well, of course, everybody wants better air quality. Nobody's going to say no to that.
yeah,
But they don't necessarily talk through the consequences, and they don't necessarily have all the data that they need. I mean, this, like you say, not being able to say that you're a motorcyclist on the survey response tells you a lot. The othering of motorcyclists, shall we say, I see that all around the country, is that these local authorities will do these surveys, and they'll ask you what mode of transport you use and how often you use it, and your inside leg measurement, everything that you want to know. But the one answer you can't give is the fact that you ride a motorcycle. They don't want to know that fact.
yes. I mean, it's they tend to ask questions framed in the way that they'd like to get their response. So I think they tend to use I wouldn't say it's a pejorative language, but it's certainly a language that changes that is aimed at, what's the best way to put it, to guide the debate. For example, like car parking has now become car storage. The subtle changes in the way that they say that they describe how people use the roads. Rat running. Well, a rat run is someone else's road that they use regularly. They like to use this pejorative language that guides the debate. Um,
They've used the term reimagining the curbside or something like that, haven't they? It's like, well, what do they really mean by that?
yeah,
Yeah, we all know that the curbside is often used for parking your vehicle, so yeah, that's kind of what we expect.
yeah. It's this language reimagining. Well, I can quite easily I can imagine a curbside. I've seen the curbside for years. I don't need to reimagine it. I know exactly what it's like. It's this kind of it's this not bureaucratic language. It's this kind of I don't know the best way to describe it. It's a language that is peculiar to councils, and it's not just Hounslow. You see it with TfL, you see it with other councils. They have a certain language, and it's I don't know where it comes from.
Yes, yeah, like I say, I think, and again, it's a language that you see repeated in exactly the same format in every council. Is that
Oh yeah,
it seems to be a playbook, shall we say?
yeah. Well, it's interesting you say repeated, because I've I've made several attempts to contact the lead councillor responsible for the policy, um, and each time I've got, in fact, I had identical emails back from the traffic department. Um, I guess two or three pages of A4, each one was an identical response. So they've obviously prepared a response to people that want to challenge the policy. So that's quite frustrating, not being able to contact my counsellor. Um, I've tried email. I think the next thing to do is to actually give them a call and see if I can have a conversation, because I find that if you can speak to the people, especially speaking to the counsellors, and it's my experience of previously speaking to my ward counsellors, if you can have a face-to-face conversation, you can get somewhere and you can find out what their thinking is. You can perhaps counter some of the arguments that they're putting forward. Um, it's it, challenge some of the assumptions that is being made about the effect of motorcycling and what it has on the environment that's caused them to drive the policy in this way.
And certainly, I mean, we find that very often the evidence is non-existent. I mean, I noticed that again. I mean, we've recently covered the goings on in Bath and North East Somerset, where they're looking at introducing again emission-based charges for motorcycles. This seems to be pretty much the same pattern what's being proposed in Hounslow. And again, they're talking about using DVLA data for CO2 emissions for vehicles, but clearly haven't thought to ask themselves, well, how much data does the DVLA hold on CO2 emissions for motorcycles? Because we know
Well,
the answer, it's less than 4.5% of vehicles of motorcycles in the country that the DVLA have got the CO2 data for. So you're going to use a database that basically gives you the answer to 4.5% of the motorcycles parking in those parking slots, and then you just have to guess for the rest.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I mean, because I live in the ULEZ area, I had one of my bikes tested individually for ULEZ compliance. It's a 2002 Royal Enfield Bullet 350, one of the classic Indian, 1950s designed um, machines. It's basically a 1950s bike. There isn't a hint of any emissions control stuff on the bike at all. And yet, when it went through the ULEZ test for NO2 emissions, the result was that it was emitting one fifth of the ULEZ or Euro 3 limit, 0.03 grams per kilometre. It was a tiny amount of emissions, um, but the assumption by TfL was that it was highly polluting.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, I've seen in some of the answers that have been given by Hounslow. Let me see if I can pull this up and actually read what they wrote to us in one of their responses. Is that they said that under Euro 4 regulations, a motorcycle could emit more than 1.14 grams per kilometre of CO2. And this now drops to 1 kilogram per kilometre for Euro 5. But what they seem to assume is that every motorcycle that was pre-Euro 4 was emitting more than 1.14 grams per kilometre. They just work on that assumption. It doesn't. It's totally meaningless because we know damn well that the vast majority of motorcycles pre-Euro 4 did not produce that amount of CO2. They've admitted that in their own paperwork, but yet they're still sort of like saying, well, yeah, clearly if it was pre-Euro 4, it must have been producing more than the limit that was set for Euro 4. That's not the way the regulations work.
Exactly, and that Euro 4 limit is the maximum. So that would be emitted by something, for example, the Triumph Rocket 3, was it 2.3 litre motorbike? So I mean, my daily ride is a Euro 4 Royal Enfield Classic. Now I would guess that given that does about 80 to 90 miles to the gallon, the amount of emissions that's coming out of that is trivial. Plus, also you've got a lot less particulates coming off the tyres. You've got less particulates coming off the brakes of a bike. Um, just through the nature of things, we most of the time, hopefully, if the traffic is behaving ourselves, we're braking less heavily than cars, because obviously you can't brake a bike as hard as you can a car. Um, the other issue that they seem to ignore is that we flow through the traffic better. While a car could be stationary in traffic, it could be stop start and for a long period. With the bike's ability to filter through traffic, you're in motion for less time, so you're using less fuel, and you're at your destination quicker. It's the whole reason for riding a bike.
What we know sort of like instinctively as riders, as motorcyclists, they seem to struggle to understand, these nuances. But to be fair, even when you look at sort of like the basics, you just think, well, hang on a minute, are these people really switched on? I mean, they've said that they expect the majority of non-electric motorcycles will fall into band 2 of their charging, which is between 1 and 75 grams per kilometre. And then they go on to say they expect the majority of electric motorcycles will fall in band 1. Now, obviously, band 1 is 0 grams per kilometre, but the majority of electric motorcycles will fall into band 1. How many electric motorcycles actually produce CO2 at the tailpipe? I'd be quite interested to find that number out, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty small.
How many electric bikes have got a tailpipe in the first place?
Exactly. Like I say, they're not really thinking this through, are they? They're sort of like saying stuff that I think they think sounds right, but they haven't really stopped and really thought about it.
Again, it's this bureaucratic language, and
Yeah.
I think they've also made some errors in putting the charging at 50% of a car space, because what they seem to be missing out or ignoring or discounting for some reason is the space efficiency of a bike. Now, if you go to the council's website at the moment, they say motorcycle parking is free, but they do request, if possible, that we park our bikes at 90 degrees to the curb. So obviously they're recognising that they're asking us to be space efficient, and yet in their new policy, they're assuming that we take up 50% of the car space.
So I suppose the next step is that if they're going to start charging at 50% of the car parking space, then we will expect all motorcycle bays to be at least the size of half a car parking space each.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's obviously the other issues about a bike bay. If it's going to be chargeable, it really should be more than just a few painted lines on some tarmac. I think if they're going to charge us for parking, they could at least have a think about how we can make our machines secure when we park them. Because I mean, motorcycle theft in every borough in London seems to be a problem, and so it would be nice to have something that we could physically secure our bikes to. And in fact, I think that one of my fellow riders in this area, he got a response from the council leader that said, I think at the end of the email, the council leader said, we can no longer afford to subsidise motorcycle parking. Well, I'm not sure they're actually spending a lot of money on it in the first place. They don't seem to be able to identify that.
Yes, yeah. So subsidising doing nothing is, it's a bit of a questionable claim. So obviously we're obviously hopeful that this video will encourage a few more people to go and sign the petition. But what's the plans once you've collected all the signatures on the petition? What are your plans to do with it? What's your line of attack, shall we say?
I'm hoping that once we have a good response to the petition, we can approach the lead councillor, and we can actually have a face-to-face meeting rather than the exchange of these rather deflecting emails that don't seem to sort of help the situation. So I think we're still at the early stages of this at this point in time. It's hard to know where we could go with the campaign. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to, if we can do things on an amicable basis without having to resort to protests. But maybe we need to do something that visualizes what goes on, get the sympathy and get the support of local residents. Because one of the interesting things in the email I did get back from the council was that they seem to have a long-term plan to monetize the whole of the curb space. There was a line in the email that said the public space is valuable, and they don't see why there shouldn't be a charge made for that public space. So first, it could be motorcycles in charging of motorcycles in motorcycle bays. Then I wouldn't be at all surprised if they've got designs on the unrestricted parking, the non-yellow lines and non-CPZ areas. They may have some designs on that. Certainly, they're looking at if you live in a controlled parking zone, you'll need a permit for your motorcycle, and that is priced. I think it's £20 less than a car, so it's more than half the permit fee for a car.
Yeah. So and I noticed they've gone to the lengths of saying that there will be a diesel surcharge if you've got a diesel motorcycle. I wonder if they've checked how many diesel motorcycles there are in the borough.
I think there's probably a few, but I think there's.
I'll be honest and say I did my homework before we recorded this, and I have checked. DVLA figures show that there are 2 registered diesel motorcycles in the borough of Hounslow. So yeah, those 2 individuals, watch out! You need to sign this petition quick.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I wonder what they are, but obviously they're not going to earn too much from that surcharge.
Yes, yeah. Like I say, if we do get anybody who lives in Hounslow who does own a diesel motorcycle, I know there's 2 of you out there. Please do get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, I'd just like to encourage people at this stage to sign the petition. If you live in Hounslow, contact your local councillors, your ward councillors, and also the councillor who's the lead member for this policy.
Okay, that's brilliant. And what we'll do is we'll put some names of the councillors in the description that goes with the video, so as you can contact them and hopefully get a little bit of reaction, shall we say, as opposed to just a blank email.
I think if we start making ourselves noticeable in the councillors' inboxes, that's going to be a start. I think I remembered somewhere that if an MP gets more than 20 letters on a particular subject, that seems like that creates a bit of a fuss. So if we can do the same with the councillors, then we can we can hopefully raise the profile of this. I think we're at a point now where we can be more proactive. The policy hasn't been implemented yet. They can't implement the policy until they can implement electronic, pay by phone or online processing of the tickets, because obviously there's no one on a motorcycle to display a parking ticket. So they've got to implement the necessary technology. So I think now is the time to get this thing before the councillors and raise the profile and see what kind of impact we can make.
Excellent. Yeah. So, like I say, now's the time to do it. Sign the petition, and we'll keep everybody updated as to how the thing progresses, and hopefully we'll get to have meetings and fair dialogue, shall we say, with the people who are actually making these decisions.
Yeah. I mean, what we can also do, we can use the petition website. We can put updates on there to show what's been happening, what dialogue's been taking place with the council, and hopefully we can do the same using MAG's resources to get the result out there.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, this is not just an issue that's going to affect us in Hounslow. It's going to affect motorcyclists all over the country.
I do often see people will respond to this kind of thing by saying, well, that's fine, I'll just never go and park there. But eventually you're going to get to the point where there's nowhere in the country that you can park. So if we don't try and stop this now, we can't make the complaint when it's too late. So yeah, we need to get on board with this now. Emission-based parking charges are a new and upcoming source of revenue for councils all around the country. It's not just in London; it's all parts of the country. And so, if we don't put our foot down now and make sure that it's equitable for us, we can't complain at a later date, can we?
Well, that's true. And the other thing, I probably final mention is that the fact that motorcycles, apart from London with the ULEZ, most other places, motorcycles are exempted from CAZ, clean air zone charges. So there's a bit of a conflict there. Because if we're allowed to ride in the area without charging for emissions, why should we be charged for emissions-based charging when we're parked up and we're not emitting anything?
Absolutely. Yes.
Where's the logic in that?
Yes, yeah. So you definitely got a double charging system. They'll charge you for riding your motorcycle, then they'll charge you for not riding your motorcycle. Then next they'll charge you for thinking about a motorcycle. Watching a motorcycle in a film or on the telly, we'll charge you for that.
Thinking about riding a motorcycle, it's way too subversive.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Mark, and hopefully we'll get this message out to a good number of people on YouTube.
Yeah, well, thank you, Colin, and ride safe, everybody. Do take care out there.